from an investor's perspective, do you think fundraising is like dating?
Exactly the same.
And
every woman I speak to feels that, and so it's kind of like, actually, so why don't you see yourself an investor? As women, we invest every day of our life. We might not invest money into businesses, but we're investing in ourselves, in our careers, in our family. And Empower Her is ultimately that. It's a community of women coming wherever they are, finding themselves in life, navigating whatever they're navigating, and finding that pocket of the community, the little pods of women in Empower Her that can help them navigate those next steps.
Vanesa, I am so happy to be joined with you today. Can you please start by introducing yourself as if you're speaking to someone that you've never met before?
Okay. Above all, I'm a mum of 5, and I run a very, very busy life. A big part of my life is I'm the founder of Noba Capital, and at Noba we invest in future work, and that is any digital tech-enabled solution that enables workers to thrive in their day-to-day life and in their work. And so we're very different in the sense of we're operational, we're hands-on, we like to really support the founders and not just write the checks. And ultimately, I'm just someone who believes that barriers shouldn't exist, and we all have a role to play in breaking those down and allowing people to have access and awareness to information, to capital, and to kind of be able to bring their ideas to life.
This is so interesting, and I'm so excited for this conversation. But on the theme of breaking down barriers, I want to start with a little bit of jargon, just because I feel like with VC, a lot of people are a little intimidated by it because they don't understand the financial terms. So what are the key words that you think that we're going to talk about that would be nice to kind of define and jargon bust before we get into the conversation?
I actually think it's becoming the barriers are breaking down in the sense of people are being a lot clearer. I think there's lots of acronyms that get used. A lot of kind of people think that they need to know everything about the VC world, and actually within a team, like if I think of my team, we have such a diverse team, and everyone looks at different areas of what we need to do when we're considering a business. Mm-hmm. And I always say kind of like, when it comes to analysing the numbers, I won't be your best person to do that because that's not where I add value. So it's kind of like, I think the biggest, like, it's not a myth, but the biggest thing is just lean into the people that are good at what they do, and as a team, find a really strong team. And so I don't know if that answers the question of like the jargon. I think it's become a world where people feel like they cannot enter it because it just doesn't sound like who they are or where they've come from. And I think actually, no, we need people that aren't from that space in this world, because those people will see things differently and look at it differently. And where there are areas that you're not necessarily good at or you're not necessarily know about, make sure you surround yourself with people that can do that.
100%. And that links perfectly to my next question, because when I first heard about VC, I was 18. I went to a VC conference by accident. I got invited with a mentor. And it was all about femtech and VC and women's healthcare businesses. And it was so interesting, but I didn't understand any of it. And I thought that I needed to have a financial background to be involved in this world. And then slowly, I understood the power of story, the power of different elements, and how it all kind of comes together in a VC conversation. But in that, I learned that only 2% or 1.8% of women get funding for their businesses. And I think a big part of it is that you just don't see yourself in those roles and in those rooms. And so you're scared to even enter. You got into VC through a slightly unconventional route, and you call it a squiggly career yourself. So can you please share with us a story of how you ended up at Noba and starting it?
I always say, like, be really proud of everything you've done to get you to where you are, because that will keep you going to where you want to be. Mm-hmm. And I'm super proud to say that I've come really unconventionally into this space. It wasn't something I stumbled on, but it wasn't something that I intentionally thought I was going to go and build. So I started my career in Madrid as an EA, and I guess I've learnt so much through all these roles as an EA. Then I was very heavily operational. Then I moved into the people operations side. And I think the core thing that I take through everything that I've done is I love meeting people. I love talking to people. I think that one of the key skills in VC actually is having empathy and being able to listen to people. And all those skills you can transfer, and ultimately you could go into any role with those skills and figure it out. I think it's almost like I didn't really feel very kind of intelligent because I didn't feel like I was academically intelligent, but actually now I realise that that's just one bucket. And I think it's also because society is created. It's almost like you go to school and you're only intelligent if you do well in your exams. And actually there are such a big proportion of kids that have other intelligence. Some like can go out and like do sports and it comes really easily to them. Some can actually understand people and talk to people, and those transferable skills is they can then go and speak, or they can then go and host things and be like sales. And so it's not limiting yourself to intelligence is a big array of things. And so when bringing it back to Noba, when we started Noba, it was like, what do I have really to give here? And I think what I had to give was that I really liked getting to know people and understanding people. And I think in VC, especially early stage where we invest, that is one of the, well, for me, that's the most important thing. You have to believe in the founder and the conviction that that founder is going to make the business successful, because one, they understand the problem inside out, and two, because they really want to change something. And it's the people you invest in. And so what my Squiggly career has taught me is nothing is wasted. Like everything you do, from kind of those summer jobs that I did in a care home looking after older people, all of that was building up something. And don't ever think that the skills you have will limit you to access a space, because there's so much you can transfer. And I do feel like the world of work is going in that way.
This is so true and powerful. Being in the founder space myself and kind of seeing some of these conversations behind the scenes and having spoken to investors before, one thing that comes up, kind of links to what you said, is investors care more about a team A player, like a founder, would rather that be there than like an amazing business idea, because the idea can always be tweaked, but it's the founder that they're actually investing in. It's a really interesting idea, but what does that actually mean? What does it actually mean to be a team A player or a team A founder?
I think for me, it means someone who can be really open and honest and not just come to their investors when it's all going great and it's glossy. It's someone who can be like, actually, you know what, this is what I'm good at, and this is what I'm not good at. And I'm not good at it, and I don't want to do it, or I'm not good at it, but I feel like I might have skills that can help me like do that. I think those are the best founders that are just self-aware of where their limitations are and seek help and support to make sure that the business is successful and we can plug in those gaps and can just roll up their sleeves and really want to get things done. I think that's it. It's less about we have a shiny, glossy team, and it's more, no, we have this team. And this team might not be the team that we have in a year's time, but for now, this is the team that's going to get us to that next stage. But we can also think ahead of, in 12 months, I'm going to need ABC roles. I can't fulfill those. How do I build to get to that?
That's so important. And before you even get to that stage, what advice do you have around pitching? Because I know so many founders, and whilst I'm not raising investment myself, I see day in, day out, the way that you talk about yourself and your business makes the biggest difference in whether you get investment or not. Now, there's other factors in terms of like bias and the way you structure it and the financials, but story is so, so, so important. Yeah. So what advice do you have around pitching?
I get asked this all the time when founders pitch, and I love that founders come up to me and say, what could I have done better? What? I think it's tell your story, tell your why are you doing it? And when it comes to pitch decks, if by slide 3, I need to know what you do and why you're doing it. And I think it's being okay with feedback, and just when you know that you want a certain investor and you want to be put in front of that investor, find ways to make that happen, but find ways that you're making it happen. So one of the things that I always say, connections is amazing to have. So figure out how someone in your orbit or your network can facilitate something, and then you do the work for that person. Don't be like, can you just introduce me? Kind of like be like, and I've got this email, can I send it to you? Can you? So I think it's that, but ultimately it's telling your story, your why, and why you're doing, and why you're passionate, and why you're going to make this work versus any other. Like, we've had lots of pitches in the last month because we're kind of funding a few of our next cohort that's going through the program, and there was this one business that's kind of trying to solve for office space and workspace and kind of share, like working by the hour. And the reason I really like them is because I've seen so many solutions of how are we solving for empty spaces, empty tables, but the way they're going about it is so different because they have lived experience of why it's been painful for them. And the way they told that story made me believe, actually, this could be something different, and it could solve for so many people and make an impact, whereas everyone else is just thinking, oh, I've got an empty unit, what do I do with it?
This is really powerful advice. As well as the why, what I've seen in my experience with pitches is the traction bit is really important as well. And coming back to bias, the studies show that men more typically get asked about opportunity and women get asked about risk when they're pitching. So how can female founders show that traction when they might not have the revenue, for example, or they might not have all the users for their product, but they really, really believe in it and they're still making the steps in their development of their business?
I think it comes back to telling a story. Like, go and figure out a way to tell the story in a way that makes sense and proves that you can get that traction. We always say kind of like the more you can get that early revenue, the better, the more the numbers do, because you do need to know your numbers. You can't just come and tell a story. Investors are also going to be looking at the numbers. We can't but it's actually being able to tell the story and tell it with conviction and have the answer that is powerful in the sense of don't just bluff it. Don't just kind of make things up. Don't make things up. And even if they're small, tell it with conviction and with strength. I think that's ultimately where I would listen and lean into more.
That's so, yeah, I agree. So we've talked about the founders. What about the people that want to learn more about investing? Maybe they're not ready to be an investor themselves, but they're kind of working towards that point. How can we encourage more people to join the conversation as investors as well?
Well, it's very timely because I've kind of launched a new thing around this for Empower Her. And I think it's find the groups that you feel you can be yourself in, find the groups that make you feel comfortable, seen, heard, and make you feel, and find that tribe that is kind of either, I'd say find that diversity in the tribe that are people who are doing it, have done it, or are thinking about doing it, and people that can add value to help you on that journey. Back to the Empower Her bit, we've created this membership tier to support women in work and women in their day-to-day lives. And I think an element of that was because around the tables that I hosted, the breakfast tables, the dinners, it was very focused around investors. But I also found I had a lot of people showing up and sitting at the table that were like, well, it's not for me because I don't know enough about it. It's not for me because I'm not in that point in my life now that I want to be an investor or I can be an investor. There are limitations. And frankly, a lot of the time it was like, I just don't see myself as an investor. I don't have the money that investors have. And those conversations were really triggering for me because at some point in my life felt that, and every woman I speak to feels that. And so it's kind of like, actually, so why don't you see yourself an investor? As women, we invest every day of our life. We might not invest money into businesses, but we're investing in ourselves, in our careers, in our family. So it's just shifting that mindset. So my advice is find the group. There's lots of groups out there, lots of communities. Find the one that works for you in that moment in time, and don't be scared to try and say it wasn't for me. And don't be scared to be part of that community for a while and then realise that you've grown and you've changed and you need to move on to the next one. So kind of the one that we've built at Empower Her is very much about what season are you in, and then we plug in. So we have a program around investing and supporting you on that, but we do it in a way that means that you're around the table. So it's all my events are hosted around a table, and you'll be around a table with people that have either done it, are doing it, or someone who's the same as you. So I think it's just show up and just be you wherever you are in that moment in time, and just be open to receiving what others could possibly help you with.
I completely agree. And having been to one of your events recently, what I found really compelling is the story that you shared around the first one, which I'd love to hear a little bit more about on camera for the audience, but also this idea of like, if you can't find the table that you want to sit at, you have the power to build your own table. And I really, really liked that you kind of shared that through some of the stuff that I've seen about you online as well. And so can you tell us a little bit more? I know you've already discussed it, but like, why did you start Empower Her and what is it as well in terms of an idea?
Empower Her started 2.5 years ago, where I had hosted a personal dinner at home with 7 friends. And every single one of those friends were working in a different industry. They were at a different moment in their lives, and they all brought kind of challenges to the table. And every single one of those challenges I saw that came from doubt of, I don't know what to do next. And that came because they didn't have representation. They didn't see others in their networks that had done it. And I think what ultimately came out of the dinner was the importance of having allies around you. And maybe the people around that table didn't have the answers for each of them, but they could then be like, okay, how do we sit down and try and figure this out together? How do we support each other? And I think for me, it's making sure that if you can help someone, this is always my motto. If I see that someone's in front of me and they're like going through a challenge and it's really hard and there's something that I can do relatively easy to support that, why would I not do that? And so it's extend a hand even when that person hasn't asked for it, because maybe they will never ask for it. Maybe they're blocked, they don't. Maybe, so it's like you never know what one little thing could do for someone. And so that's, Empower Her is ultimately that. It's a community of women coming at wherever they are, finding themselves in life, navigating whatever they're navigating and finding that pocket of the community, the little pods of women in Empower Her that can help them navigate those next steps. And ultimately, we gather around a table every time and make sure it's intimate enough that people can feel that they can open up, they can share, and they can be honest.
I love that. And you've managed to create this really powerful community. As a VC and as a community builder, I'm sure even though people don't always ask you for stuff, you get a lot of requests and you get a lot of people asking. And what have you found is a difference in between how people ask that makes you want to say yes and makes you feel like, okay, maybe down the line, or maybe this is not the right opportunity for me to help? How can people ask in a way that you want to help and ask in a way that it's a win-win for both people?
I think it's by being really honest, like, tell me what you need from me and tell me why my help's going to help you. And don't like try and like, I don't know, sugarcoat it. It's like, I'd rather like back to the event. The biggest thing about the event is I asked every woman to tell me what they wanted to get. So what was their ask and what could they give? I think it's being able to be like have reciprocity and like be able to give back. And maybe I can't give back today or you can't give back to me, but kind of like just having the empathy of making it happen by being really honest. And so I get lots of people like, can I pick your brain? It's okay, but what is it that you need? How am I going to be able to help you? And is it really me who you need? Because I don't invest in everything. I could give you very overall advice because a lot of the asks are around investment. But maybe I could also be like, tell me what you need, because maybe I know someone else who invests in your space who can help you a lot more than what I can. So it's kind of like just being really clear and honest what you need and why you've approached me.
Yeah, 100%. And as someone who's finally starting to get my first like cold DMs now when people ask me for stuff, I think another part of it is like humanizing it. It's like be honest, but also know that you're talking to a person. And so like have a personal element to it and make sure that you actually know who you're talking to is like really important. What I find is now I'm getting to the point where I can't always say yes to everything. It's not because I don't want to, it's just because of time and capacity. Just like you can't say yes to every business that you invest in. And I'm sure that is kind of sad as well. And that like you feel a little bit of guilt around like not being able to help everyone. And so how do you manage that emotional kind of guilt side of it as well?
I think for the female founders out there, I actually had quite a few female founders at the event that I hosted this week, and Empower Her has become how I can help them. So it's like actually it's a community that you can still talk to others, other investors, other advisors. And whilst Noba can't invest in you for whatever reason it is, then you can still belong and come and show up. Also for the ones that aren't female founders. And we have events. We don't close doors. And also a lot of the founders we've backed towards the end of last year, especially 2 companies that we have in portfolio, we met them like 24 months before we invested in them. So it's almost, my advice is always a no is just a step before a yes. So if I say no today, I might be saying no because it's the wrong time. It's not the right time for my portfolio. It's your raise isn't in the place it needs to be for Noba to come in now, maybe come back later. So stay in touch, stay connected. And there's always value to be had from being part of the ecosystem, because I will always, if I see an opportunity to connect a founder with someone, a company, a potential kind of sales lead, I will do it if I feel I'm having a relationship, growing relationship with that person. So just back to your point, just get to know the people, and if you enjoy like being in spaces where we are, then just come along to them and be there.
I love that. And I think one of the things that links to that is when I started in entrepreneurship, one of the things that we got taught is the different types of investment. So yes, only 2% of women receive VC investment, but there's other types of investment. You have angel investing, you have friends and family, you have bootstrapping. And we were kind of encouraged at that space to think, do you actually need investment and what is the right type for you? And so even though you're a VC, do you think that everyone should have VC investment? And what are the points that you should consider when you're thinking, should I go and pitch for VC funding or not?
I highly encourage founders to, if they can, bootstrap. If they have the luxury to have friends and family that can like help them with the round, do that, and just go with individual angel investors to start with. I encourage that one because you're kind of at that stage still trying to build something, so kind of you won't have the traction to go to a VC, you'll be too early. Two, you'll be able to build in a much more meaningful way. At that early stage, you need people around you that can really help you get to that next stage and help you accelerate. So the cash is always number one for founders, and it should be, because without it, they can't really grow and scale. But you should be thinking about, what else can I do that still protects me, because once you get to VC, dilutions, all these things come to play. And also at a larger round, they're going to want to see traction, sales, revenue, all these things that by the time you get there, you kind of have to have that in place. And the institutional money is more like, right, this is a really big scale that we're going to do, and we're going to grow to this next stage, and we need a good chunk of money to help us get there. We need to build the team, build the product to a different level. We're expanding internationally. It's that. And so I always say, if you can go down the family and friends, the bootstrapping, or the angels, there are loads of angel clubs out there. Like, we have our angel club, and that's where we invest at early stage through the club. And they will support you more than just writing a check for you. They'll also be able to do the introductions. They'll be able to support you through kind of the pain points of, how do I map up this next stage?
Yeah, it's so interesting. A few months ago, I interviewed a founder who just closed her second round, and she was talking about how fundraising is like dating, and how it's like kind of like you go through finding the right match like a few times and you get rejected, and it's really disheartening, but like it's a numbers game, and you have to kind of treat it that way. And it was super interesting to hear that analogy. From an investor's perspective, do you think fundraising is like dating?
Exactly the same.
And what is like, when you go on a date, like most people have a list of like, this is what's on my list of like, this is what I would like to have in the person that I'm kind of seeing. So what is on the investor's dating list?
For me, it's generally nice, kind people that are like just nice. I think it's also people that want to listen, and I'm not saying that we have all the answers, but kind of like actually people who respect that you've done it before, you've been there before, and you're not coming at it with I want to tell you what to do. It's actually, no, we want to make this business really successful. We want to back you. So how would you go about doing it? Okay, we probably would do it this way. What do you think? And being able to have a conversation, I think that's really important. I think it's founders that aren't just chasing the money that attract me. Like, if all you need and want is the money, that's totally fine, but you need to find the investors that are just going to be passive and write the checks, and then they can. So it's very much someone who can build a relationship, who enjoys, like, we do this in hiring as well, like enjoys being able to have a meal with you and have a chat, and someone that you feel will just kind of let all the barriers come down and just be really themselves. Those are the founders I have most fun with, and that's kind of the biggest criteria for me. And I do have, whenever we're looking at businesses, I'm the one that everyone's like, what's your gut say, Vanessa? Because I do get the challenges of, it's back to your point, it's so disappointing when you can't back the ones that you think, oh my gosh, I really love this, but for our thesis it's too early, and that's when I then usually do try and stay in touch, support, help, and know that eventually they might come back in.
And linking to this dating analogy, we've kind of talked about the green flags, but what are the red flags? What are the ones where you see and you're like, these are things that founders can maybe do to refine their pitch or refine their business or the way they talk about themselves, or maybe just think like, this is not for me?
I think it's back to founders that think they can play every role in the business, and that's just impossible. Like, none of us can play every role in our businesses. And then I think, and this might just be personal to me, I don't like defensiveness. I kind of like people to have an opinion and back up their opinion and say, like, almost be like, but also open to listening and be able to agree to disagree kind of thing, but not like put up that bar. And so it's kind of that. I just like, I like people to just be able to enjoy the journey and not feel like there are all these barriers that come up.
Mm-hmm. And what you said about doing every role is so important. I'm at a stage where I'm kind of learning to let go, but that's a luxury you have once you have the money to kind of start hiring. And making your first few team decisions is like the make or break in your business, because it really is the people. And so do you have any advice on how to, one, find good people, and two, how to create a good culture when you do find those people so that you have a good team?
The funny thing about this is you think you know and have the advice, and then guess what? Things change out there, and people's expectations change, and people are different. And so kind of like I myself feel like I'm constantly learning, and it's almost like you have to kiss lots of frogs before you find the right one. It's the same with people. I think what the things that I'm learning, having the tough conversations, which is something that is hard. Like, people see conflict as a bad thing, but actually having conflict is probably good because it means that you care and you get to have those conversations. So that's one. Two, I think it's being okay when things don't work out. And I think trying to have a very open and honest culture where people feel that they can talk to you. But I also get that when you're in a small organisation, it can also be hard, because ultimately the person you're directly working with could be your boss if you're employee number one or number two. So it's trying to create the environment where people are empowered to do the work, build the business with you, but also kind of be able to say, actually, for me, that doesn't work, and be listened to. So it's kind of like also just being aware that stepping back and sometimes not responding too quickly to situations, and just trying to be like, analyse it and be like, okay, it didn't work out, let's move on.
I think that's so important. And I think another one is like boundaries. I know it's a bit wishy-washy, but like having good boundaries in your own life and making sure that like you give your team the luxury to have their own lives outside of work as well. You speak a lot on LinkedIn about your beautiful family, and also the fact that you're really active and you like running and you've done all these half marathons. So how do you, because work-life balance is a bit of a myth, but how do you create like a kind of harmony of the things that are really important for you and show that is possible for the rest of your team as well? I
think it's how I do it for me is I try to be as kind as possible to myself and not have an expectation of I have to do this. Like, there are moments where you won't have work-life balance because there are periods in life where things just don't go to plan and you have to do the best you can in that moment in time. But I think the way I do it with my team regularly see me show up in my sports gear, and I figure I'm kind of like, throughout the day, I will figure out when I go out for a run and kind of try to encourage the same. We were actually talking about this a couple of weeks ago with someone in our team, and he was like, okay, once we get through all these kind of like, we're obviously diligencing quite a lot, it'd be really nice to go out for a run at lunchtime and not have to do it really early in the morning. And it's kind of like given permission to go and do it throughout the workday, because you're getting the work done. So why does it matter what time of day you're going to go and do that? And I guess we have our offices in Islington. We're in Screenworks in Islington. So we have beautiful surroundings of tennis courts and parks. And it's kind of like find a way to make it work and kind of just be open about it. And so for me, I feel like, especially being a mum and having children, the best way to lead is by showing what you do and being okay and open to being like, and you guys, this is totally acceptable for everyone to do as well. I regularly turn up at pitch days with founders in my sports gear because I'm either running home after the pitch day or I've run there. So it's not unusual.
I love that. And I think this whole balance is something that really, it's not something that I think of that much in my life because of the stage I am right now with motherhood and everything. Like, I'm still really young. But when I went to the Empower Her event, a lot of the people on my table that I was talking to said that this is something that they really struggle with because there's almost a tax on motherhood to women's careers. And even if you're a founder and even if you have the luxury of kind of building your business to suit you, you have this guilt and it's really hard to balance it. And so what advice do you have for women that are either founders, investors, or both, but they're also mothers first and foremost? How can they balance that with their time and also their energy?
I think it's being okay that there are moments that you will not be there, and being really open. I'm very open with the children, and they know, like, they say to me, Mummy, this is a really important thing that I need you to be there, and I will be there for those. But then there are others that are like, I have 5 children at home, so it's kind of like there are a lot of end of term things to go to, so it's almost like being able to be really open and balance that up. But bring them on the journey with you as well, especially my daughters. They're at the edge of their seats being like, when are we going to the Empower Her event, Mummy? And I think it's really good to have them be part of it, because then that guilt kind of goes away a little bit. Like, they tell them about why it is that you're not around so much. But then I guess ultimately when you are around, be present, be there, and like be there for whatever it is. So for example, now at Easter, we will go away for like 4 days. And in those 4 days, I will be present and we will do things together and we will like engage and be together. And I think it's the guilt comes if in the moments that you are there, you're not there. So actually, how do you make sure that they become part of what you do?
This is so cool. And yesterday, actually, I was speaking to someone at a business event and they were saying that they were calling their 5-year-old daughter Bossy, and then they realized they probably shouldn't be doing that. And they were asking around how we can kind of speak to young girls to make them feel like they can take the space that they want to personally, professionally, in their lives, the way they talk about themselves. So as a super successful investor and founder, how do you speak to all your children, but also especially your girls, on like what's possible for them in their work, in their life, and how they can show up for themselves?
I think I'm quite fortunate that I think out of the 3 girls, they believe in themselves a lot. And I would say that it's being like emotionally connected and have that empathy. So my daughter came back from school the other day, and this isn't related to what she can go, but she'd fell over and she had a cut on her leg. And I said to her, oh, did it hurt? And she's like, yeah, it did, but I didn't cry, she said to me. And I was like, and why did you not cry? She's like, I don't know, I just didn't cry. And I said, but did you feel like crying? She's like, no. I was like, okay. I was like, but if you felt like crying, you know it's okay to cry. And I think it's given them permission that it's okay to feel like you want to conquer the world, but it's also okay that there are moments that you don't want to feel like you're figuring it out, and also be very open that you can do anything that you want to do. Mm-hmm. No one should tell you couldn't, but you need to figure out the path to get there versus just go and be disrespectful, be rude and go. No, it's actually there are ways to get there, and make sure you do it in a respectful, kind way. And I always say to my children, don't agree with people. If you don't agree, if you disagree with what someone's saying, you can very respectfully say, I disagree and this is why I disagree, and move on. Like, you don't have to agree with everything.
I love that. That's so powerful and helpful. And speaking about your daughters, let's talk about the next generation of women in work and like in VC and also in the founder space. What are your hopes and expectations for the next generation of female founders, builders and creators?
Super excited, because if my daughters have anything to go by, like, it's going to be very kind of strong generation. I hope that we stop talking about female and women founders and we just talk about founders, because it's a norm. I really hope, and that's one of the things that the reason why I do so much with Empower Her, and kind of like not just in the investment landscape, but also in women in work and supporting women at different stages in their life, is because I don't want that generation to be fighting the same things we're fighting now. I want them to be having other challenges, but not the same ones. And I think we are at that moment. We are probably it's the first time that we're disrupting really heavily and strongly. And it's the first time a lot of the conversations around women are being openly had and people are sitting up to listen a little bit more. But just like my biggest hope is the tags and the names that we get allocated, like a female founder, a female worker, they just go away and we're all just seen as a founder or an engineer, an astronaut. Like it's just the gender goes away.
Yeah. And for any one person that's starting their career, listening to this conversation, what advice would you give them that you wish you knew when you were starting out?
I think it's, you don't need to know everything. Like if there is a role in front of you, there is an opportunity in front of you, there is a challenge in front of you that excites you, figure out what you need, what are the things you have that can allow you to do that, and what are the things that you need, and like figure out how to do it. So if you feel like you're 50% there and you could do 50% of that, just go and do it. Like confidence comes after action. So just go and do it.
I always say that confidence is built through evidence. And so you have to go build the evidence. This has been super awesome. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think there's a lot for the founders, for the investors, and for the young women and people in general. I already touched on this, but I've been called bossy my whole life. And I think this is something that's not just me, but a lot of young women in general. So what does bossy mean for you? Have you ever been called it? And are you reclaiming it in this season of your life?
Yes, I have been called it. And I think probably a lot of girls have been called it. I think for me, it means finding your voice and using it, but not just using it, asking people and claiming to be listened to, because there's nothing worse than having a voice and not being listened to. So using your voice, but also demanding that people listen to it if you have a point of view and have something to say.
I love that. Little bonus question. So with demanding that your voice is heard, I feel like one thing again, I know you said that we want to take this conversation from just women, but something that I've seen with my peers and females, but also just young people in general, is this idea of not being taken seriously. So you have a voice, you're talking really loudly, but that's not enough to be taken seriously, not just by others, but also by yourself, and trusting that you kind of know what you're doing. And so what advice do you have around that and kind of being taken seriously?
Actually, it's really interesting you asked me this, because I was having a conversation with my partner about something similar, and he was like, you can't just say something. Have data and back it up with data. Like always have something that you can say, and this is why, and something that can be seen, read, and is credible. So you can have like your voice, you can have an opinion, but back it up with data.
It's kind of what we said around confidence is built through evidence. Evidence is built through data as well. So that's super powerful. Okay, where can everyone find and connect with you?
Okay, so LinkedIn. So I'm pretty active and responsive on LinkedIn. We have our website, which is Empower Her website, Empower Her by Noba. We host loads and loads of events. So if you join our Noba Luma page, you can see everything that's coming up.
Yeah, I will link everything down below.
Amazing.
Because I want as many people to come join the community as possible.
Me too.
But thank you so much for making the time for this conversation. I've really enjoyed it. You truly are empowering, inspiring, and educational. Thank you so, so, so much.
Thank you.